A major earthquake transformed Seoul into a lawless wasteland where food has become scarce and citizens have to filter the little dirty water they saved in order to drink it. When a teenager that Namsan, a badland hunter, adores, gets taken by Yang Ji-soo, a deranged doctor, the fearless hunter sets out on a dangerous rescue mission. The movie begins inside a lab where an injured doctor, Yang Ji-soo, ignores the authorities and runs to his daughter's corpse. But the authorities had barged into the dorm and surrounded him. When Yang Ji-soo still refused to listen to them, Yang Ji-soo attempted to inject into his daughter what he'd been experimenting on. He was shot before he could even inject the liquid into his daughter. Unexpectedly, the ground started shaking and a major earthquake occurred that destroyed the whole of Seoul. 3 years after the earthquake, Seoul had turned into a lawless badlands. Due to the scarcity of food and water, there have been a number of hunters roaming around the badlands in search of food they can sell. Besides this, rain is a weather they don't have the privilege of getting anymore. No one can remember when the last time it rained. The people had learned numerous ways to save some water and would go to a nearby district to filter it to make it drinkable. Living in a bus district is a fearless badland hunter named Namsan who is feared by those who know of him. He sometimes went hunting with an 18-year-old guy named Choi Ji-won whom he was also living with. After hunting, they would set up shop in the district and sell meat to the other citizens. Two of their loyal customers are an 18-year-old girl named Han Suna and her grandmother. One day, while they were selling crocodile meat, a gang came and introduced themselves as cops from Jamsil police station. They showed a sketch of a person and used it as an excuse to capture random people. When the leader of the group saw Suna, he was shocked by how young she looked and grabbed her by the hair. Seeing this, Ji-won ran to protect Suna from the gang members but ended up being ganged up on. This is when Namsan decided to step in. He easily knocked all the bandits down and pinned the leader to his table. He interrogated the leader and learned that he was working under a gang leader called Tiger. Namsan also asked about the clear water the guy had. That's when they found out that there was an apartment hidden by unusual terrain, and that's where the guy got the clear water. After closing up their shop, Namsan and Ji-won walked back home and found a group of clean and seemingly healthy individuals, which is unusual for the kind of life everyone has in a wasteland. They approached the group and learned that the group was offering Suna and her grandmother to come live with them in an apartment where there's food and clean water. The woman introduced herself as a teacher and explained that they are looking for teenagers to teach as they believe that children are a way to a better future. The teacher also promised that the grandmother was going to receive proper care, and that alone was enough for Suna, who was initially skeptical, to finally agree. With the promise of a better life, Suna and her grandmother accepted the offer. Namsan and Ji-won were sad that they wouldn't be seeing Suna anymore, but they were still glad that they'd be living somewhere better. Later that night, Suna and her grandmother left with the group. Along the way, Suna couldn't help but feel suspicious of the group, but she ignored that feeling as she believed nothing was wrong. They met up with another group and found that there had been other families that were offered the same thing. Suna met another girl named Lee Ju-yi. Ju-yi was a vibrant girl and Suna immediately became friends with her. The group continued walking on the grassy path when Suna's grandmother suddenly fell on her knees due to how tired and old she was. The teacher ordered 2 of her men to take Suna's grandmother and another old man to a nearby healthcare facility that the teacher said they set up for the old and sick individuals that would come with them to the apartment. The teacher promised Suna that her grandmother would follow them to the apartment once she finally got some rest. Suna, on the other hand, was already getting more suspicious, and when she realized that a car had been waiting for them nearby, that suspicion grew bigger. She then asked the teacher why they had to send her grandmother to the healthcare facility if the cars were this close to them, and Sergeant Kwan told her that they could wait for her. But there were 2 children in the group who were complaining about being thirsty, and Suna didn't have the heart to let them wait any longer. While passing by Sergeant Kwan, Suna glanced at him and noticed what seemed to be a fresh scar behind his ear. Meanwhile, the 2 elderlies were led to the supposed facility but instead found nothing but a deep hole in the ground. One of the men pushed the old man into the hole while the other stabbed Suna's grandmother at the back of her neck, instantly killing her. Namsan and Ji-won, who went out for some more hunting, witnessed what happened and lunged at the men in rage. But during the fight, they noticed that the men were regenerating and there seemed to be no way to kill them. Ji-won even watched as the man he managed to lift up by foot with a trap cut his feet off just to kill him. Suddenly, a woman named Lee Yoon-ho, a former sergeant in the CCU Air Force Special Forces unit, came and helped them kill the men by cutting their heads off. She introduced herself and asked Namsan's help to rescue her subordinates who were locked up in the apartment. She told Namsan and Ji-won about the strange experiments that Yang Ji-soo, who became the head of the apartment due to him being the only doctor who survived, had been conducting on the survivors they had taken to the apartment. Namsan and Ji-won didn't need to be told twice and immediately agreed to help Eun-ho. But the apartment had tight security, and to gain more information on how they could get in, the trio went to Spa Land, which is being used as some kind of fighting arena for two rival gangs. The rival gangs were already brawling against each other when they came in. The trio joined in and knocked each and every member of both gangs down. Namsan interrogated Tiger and learned that the gang is kidnapping people to deliver to the apartment, and that's how they get clean water. But not even they can easily enter the apartment and can only go there during delivery days. The trio captured Tiger and his subordinates to bring them near the apartment. They then stopped for a while to plan out how they were going to get inside without being caught. Meanwhile, Suna arrived at the apartment and finally met Yang Jiaisu, who spoke to them, promising that they would be provided with food and water. He ordered the soldiers to distribute bottles of water to the new residents, and everyone drank it except for Suna. After changing into her uniform, Suna asked Sergeant Kwan when her grandma was coming, and the teacher who was nearby approached her and told her she had sent a ride to the elderlies early in the morning and they should arrive before dinner time. Suna thought nothing of it and went to where the other residents were, not knowing that her grandmother was already gone. Suna's suspicion came back to life when the teacher told them that the students would not be living with their families. Her suspicions became clear the day she finally met the other students and noticed how strangely they were acting. And when he saw that all the other students had scars behind their ears, Suna started believing that something strange was indeed going on in the apartment. She started questioning the teacher and Yang Jiaisu's true intentions, which seemed to irk the teacher. The teacher explained to her that Yang Jiaisu only wanted what was best for them, so they must look up to him and believe in him. Their food and water arrived along with Yang Jiaisu, who gave another speech about making Seoul a better place. He learned of Ju Ye's willingness to help in his research and offered to let her assist him in his lab. Suna then suddenly asked if her grandmother was alive and demanded to meet her. But the teacher told her that her grandmother was really sick and is now being given proper care. Yang Jiaisu talked to her, making promises to her, and encouraged Suna to drink her water. The teenager pretended to drink her water, but once the doctor and the teacher had their backs on her, she put down the water, now noticing the strange behavior everyone was showing after drinking their water. That night, while the other students were asleep, Suna sneaked out of the room to search around the building, looking for something that might tell her what was really happening in the apartment. She entered Yang Jiaisu's lab and found out about the experiments the mad doctor had been conducting. Entering another room, Suna was horrified and worried upon seeing Jude unconscious on a table, a weird device attached to her head and her whole body were restrained. Meanwhile, Yang Jiaisu went to the area where the parents were overworked. Juya's parents were becoming agitated and were demanding to meet their daughter just as the teacher promised. Yang Jiaisu offered to take them to his lab where they could meet their daughter, and the parents eagerly followed, excited to see their child. But that excitement turned into shock and fear when they saw the state Ju was in. They checked on Juya's body, and Yang Jiaisu was panicking as he told them not to stimulate Juya's body. Yang Jiaisu then showed them his own daughter. He moved his cabinet, revealing his daughter, Soyun, who only consists of her head, neck, shoulder, and beating heart. Juya's parents and Suna, who was hiding in a storage, were terrified at the sight. Scared that the same thing would happen to their daughter, they grabbed onto Joy, stimulating her body, which then killed her. Enraged, Yang Jiaisu killed the father, and the mother was shot in the head by Sergeant Kwan. Yang Jiaisu found Suna hiding in the storage and replaced Juyi with her. The deranged doctor opened up the skin behind Suna's ear, explaining that he needed her pituitary glands as they contained something vital to his research. Meanwhile, Namsan, Jivan, and Eunho planned to enter the apartment with Tiger, pretending to have delivery. But the soldiers caught on to their act as it wasn't even delivery day, and Namsan decided to drop the act and killed everyone on his way into the apartment. Upon seeing Eunho, Sergeant Kwan ordered everyone not to stop her if she went to the prison containing her subordinates. The trio did go to the prison first, aiming to free her subordinates, but Eunho was met with a surprise. Her subordinates had been subjected to Yang Jiaisu's experiments and turned into mutants. Eunho was left with no choice but to help Namsan and Jivan eliminate their subordinates. After eliminating the mutants, Namsan let Jivan and Eunho go ahead while he stayed behind to kill all the other soldiers who had come after them. The relentless Badland hunter brutally murdered the soldiers and made sure none were left alive before he followed Jivan and Eunho. He saw the parents of the students and told them to find their own children before walking away. Eunho, on the other hand, went up a few floors before telling Jivan to go first while she stayed behind to face Sergeant Kwan. A fight ensued between the two former comrades. Eunho made a cut on Sergeant Kwan's eye, but due to the latter's enhanced strength, Eunho was defeated and thrown out of the apartment. Jivan found the teacher and forced her to take him to Suna, while Namsan finally came to show Sergeant Kwan who's the real boss. The two engaged in a fight, and Namsan threw Sergeant Kwan out of the window. Sergeant Kwan grabbed Namsan's arm and the latter pulled him up by the hair and cut his head off with the sharp part of the broken window. Meanwhile, Suna was still strapped in the lab when Yang Jiaisu began acting strange. Suna revealed that she knew that the water they gave her had something mixed in it, which is why she never drank it. Yang Jiaisu took her pituitary gland and created a vial for his experiment, which is to turn a human into an unkillable creature. He made a first vial that was mixed with an animal's blood and mixed it with the subject's water to drink. Once the subject's blood is mixed with the first vial, he'll then take their pituitary gland and make a second vial, which he will then inject into himself. He is doing all of this in order to create something that would completely take his daughter back to life and prevent her from dying ever again. But since Suna never drank the water they gave her, the second vial that Yang Jiaisu created with her pituitary gland failed, which then resulted in an unusual side effect. Yang Jiaisu felt the side effects coming and vomited. Then Jivun entered the room with the teacher in front of him. He threatened Yang Jiaisu to free Suna, but another soldier came, creating a diversion for Yang Jiaisu to escape with Soyeon's body in a glass box. Before they could leave, Namsan appeared and fought against the soldier who accidentally shot the teacher. The teacher begged Yang Jiaisu to save her, but instead, the latter threw a grenade in the room. To protect Suna, Jivun grabbed the lab table and pulled it down to prevent both him and her from getting hit by the explosion. Yang Jiaisu was on his way out of the premises when the residents saw him. They mobbed him and beat him up, but Yang Jiaisu threatened them. He grabbed a gun and fired around aimlessly. He was furious, but when he saw that he had accidentally hit the luggage holding his daughter's glass box, he panicked and checked on her, only to find that the box was now shattered and empty with water. Yang Jiaisu cried as he apologized, promising to start all over again to fix her. Suna tried to talk him out of it, reminding him that his daughter will never forgive him once she finds out what he's done to revive her. But Yang Jiaisu was already too far gone, and before he could shoot Suna, Namsan killed him first. Like a miracle, their fight was rewarded with rain. The group of four happily welcomed the rain. Eunho told the other three that she was planning on staying in the apartment and starting all over it, using the privileges in the apartment to help everyone who needed them. Meanwhile, Namsan, Suna, and Jivun went back to the bus district and became each other's family in the Badlands.